Everyone's saying AI is the biggest shift since the internet, which sounds cool. So why are we just using it to rephrase bullet points and rewrite a headline or two? There's obviously a gap between what this thing can do and what we're actually doing with it. So I called in an expert, Stew Hillhouse, who's been working with the folks at StoryArb to integrate AI into all kinds of different workflows.
I've spent the last number of years helping companies sort of figure out how to build operational content systems, and have really seen the evolution go from doing it all manually with no AI to then, AI is okay at certain things, but really not a huge piece, to now, as we're recording this, AI is a fundamental part of any content and marketing strategy. So the way I approach using AI, I kind of come at it from 3 different angles that helps a marketer in their day-to-day. So the first one is AI is unbelievable at distilling and compressing huge amounts of data that you otherwise wouldn't have the ability or likely time to ever sift through. Second, it's really useful as a creative partner. So something to help you brainstorm new creative angles or hooks or pitches. And then lastly, AI is fantastic for that last mile, getting your idea from in your head to in the market, which is super important for marketers. The velocity in which you can get your ideas out there in the public, the faster you're able to learn from it and adapt. So at the end of the day, you still need to be really good at marketing and you still need to understand all the foundations, but AI is there as your assistant to help get things rolling and to be able to go from something in your brain to something tangible way, way faster.
And that's really the heart of Stew's approach. AI isn't here to replace marketers. It's here to do the things we can't do at scale. And nowhere is that clearer than the first workflow he walked me through. But before I jump into these workflows, I want to share a 4-step crash course from HubSpot on how to leverage AI. It gives you the basics you need to understand LLMs. You'll see the principles from this crash course come to life in Stew's workflows, so it's a great place to start. Okay, back to the first workflow, leveraging sales calls for messaging.
Your sales team is having hours and hours of conversations every single week with prospects and customers. They're really getting into the details of why they use your product or need your product. And so when you listen to these calls, you actually are given all the answers. You know exactly what you need to say because you're hearing the language that your market is already using. And I think that should be the foundation that helps shape the rest of your marketing messaging.
The problem is sales transcripts are packed full with useful data, but no marketer has the time to read through all these calls. So that's where Stew's workflow comes in.
Start just by going and gathering between 3 to 10 sales calls. The more the better. You're going to take those transcripts and you're just going to use a general AI chat tool and dump them all in there and start asking questions.
Stew writes the following prompt. You're a B2B marketing analyst. Given these sales call transcripts and the ICP below, extract number 1, top 7 pains. Number 2, buying triggers. Number 3, must-have outcomes. Number 4, common objections with rebuttals. And number 5, 15 verbatim quotes with timestamps. Then synthesize into 3 POV pillars, a benefit ladder for each pillar, problem value proof, 5 hook headlines per pillar in the customer's language, and lastly, a 1-page messaging sheet. The first thing I noticed about this prompt is how specific the setup is.
It's really important when you're crafting your prompts that you include specific details about your business. And these need to come from you to be really crisp about who your ideal customer persona is. So that's who you're trying to sell to. Another thing here that I was specific about was I wanted to think as a marketing analyst. It's going to be very, analytical and only give me answers based on the transcript. So when prompting, you need to bring a lot of that context. But once you define them and give it to the AI, it now will include that context in the answers it gives you.
But knowing what to include is only half of the puzzle. The other half is figuring out how to structure the prompt itself. Stew had an answer for that too.
You can reverse engineer any type of prompt you want from the outcome you're trying to get. You can say, hey, I'm looking to rewrite my homepage and I need some quotes and I need some pain points and I need some objections. Write me a prompt that I could use to extract these from a transcript. That's a big unlock that you can have, is realizing that you need to manually write prompts. You can actually ask AI to create the prompts for you.
When you run Stew's prompt, here's what you get back. A messaging map with your core pillars tied to real quotes, an objection sheet showing what customers push back on and how to respond, and a library of copy starters that you can use across campaigns, website headlines, whatever you need. These deliverables give everyone a shared understanding of how to speak in a way that actually resonates with customers. You'll know it's working by tracking these KPIs. And the best part is, you can run it monthly to keep your messaging relevant.
I think what's really unique about now having AI workflows that we can use again and again is you can make lightning strike twice. Like when you do, like when AI has an output and then you put it out in the market and it gets a positive response, you know exactly the ingredients that went in to make that happen. You can then rerun the prompt and say, here is our marketing from a year ago. I really liked A, B, and C. Can you give me a modern version of this given the new data that we have?
This workflow makes use of data buried within your company to craft messaging based on customer truth. These aren't headlines from a brainstorm, they're informed by what customers are already telling you. But messaging on its own can only go so far. You also need to make sure people can find you, especially as the way people search is changing. That's why Stew designed a workflow for AEO, or answer engine optimization.
It's an evolving industry, but where it stands right now, AEO is less scientific than SEO. You know, you're not trying to look for keyword volumes or like difficulty of ranking. It's more of a game of trying to see around the corner. Like, what else can we answer for our prospects? What else does a buyer need to know in order to consider our product? What else do they need in order to kind of complete the purchase? So you want to have this like very holistic view of what are the questions that people might have? In what ways do I need to package that information to make it really useful to the person, but also very accessible to the LLM that is scraping that content? So step one here is we're actually going to use those sales calls again and ask AI to extract all the questions that the prospect asked. And then step two is we're going to extrapolate on those. And what this is going to do is it's going to explore all of the angles and all of the positioning that a prospect might have and give me 10 more questions that digs deeper into that line of questioning. So now what we're left with is 100 questions, and these all now become on-ramps for your content to discuss those, and you can create a ton of different marketing collateral that your prospect is already likely thinking about.
Once you have these questions, Stew recommends figuring out what content to prioritize with the following prompt. Act as an AEO strategist. From these sources, output a CSV with columns: stage, question, intent, evidence needed, priority 1 through 5, existing content, URLs. For the top 10, draft briefs with a direct answer, outline, citations needed, a CTA suggestion, and 3 title variants. Stew stopped short of asking the AI to create the content, only asking for briefs because he believes a human point of view is a differentiator.
Technically, LLMs aren't actually thinking, they are just putting words together. AEO is desperately looking for new content and points of view that people have. So rather than just creating AI-generated content from other AI-generated content, you're actually rewarded for creating hyper-specific content that's tailored for a very particular audience that uncovers net new ideas. And so the more quotes you have, the more expert opinions you interview, the more data points and evidence that you reference around a particular idea, your content will perform better because now you're giving the LLMs novel new information that it can reference in its answers.
So use AI to set the scaffolding, but keep the storytelling human. Your goal should be to create content that's less interested in keywords and more interested in being complete, credible, and site-worthy. And the most credible and site-worthy people at your company are the C-suite. People want to hear from them, but they rarely have the time to post. Their best ideas end up trapped in internal meetings and on sales calls. This final workflow from Stew fixes that.
For this one, you're going to want to start by gathering some transcripts. And these can kind of be a lot of different forms. They can be leadership interviews, they can be customer calls, they can even be internal all hands, assuming there's no proprietary data being shared. Even 20 minutes of a recorded conversation between you and your manager or you and your CEO is enough to generate, a week of posts. So the second step then is now to run a prompt like this. From this transcript and our point of view document, propose 5 angles. For each, include a short thesis, who cares, one number to prove it, and the cleanest counter argument. The idea here is not to come out with like a finished draft. It's just to define a really unique point of view that person can write about that will be interesting to see on social media. And that is like the number one thing that any individual can do when posting on social media, is to have a strong point of view.
Once you have the angle, you tailor the voice. Take existing writing from your leadership and feed them to the AI with this prompt. Create a tone of voice guide that replicates this style. If that material doesn't exist, have the AI analyze their transcripts for patterns, diction, cadence, tone, and output a style guide. Now you have a system for writing in their voice, and you can action these tools to create thought leadership that's consistent in tone and appealing to your target customer. To make it sustainable, keep it simple. You need a content lead to run prompts and draft posts, your leader for approvals and context, and someone in comms to check accuracy and compliance. You can take any one of these workflows and implement them separately, but Stew designed these to all work in parallel.
You can have the messaging going on over here, and then you can have executive thought leadership going on over here. But a truly unified marketing strategy works best when one activity feeds another activity and then gives you real market signals that then goes back and helps inform the strategy at the top again. And so that's why I like to see these all as running together, but also could be independent setups.
Stew showed me how AI does the work marketers rarely have time to do to enhance the marketing we do.
You're still going to need to come up with these great ideas, and you're still going to need to execute on them, but the quality and the complexity that you can now achieve with a very small team and relatively few tools is kind of open to the imagination.
If you want to see what else is possible, check out the AI Workflows crash course I mentioned earlier. It'll give you everything you need to start experimenting with your own systems. And let us know in the comments how you're using AI in your marketing. We're all figuring this out together, and the best ideas usually come from seeing what other marketers are trying.